can't take responsibility to nothing else. Nothing else. So people like, no, I get him to your practice. I will make sure he's at your games. And I'm gonna make sure he gets some side reps along the way. But that takes time. And I think for me, it's important time because I am mindful that this time with him is gonna go by.
Sneakers, cars, leadership. Sneakers, cars, leadership. Atlanta. Built different. Legacy moves. A podcast that goes into the essential leadership skills needed to excel in both personal and professional life. Hosted by me, Dre Hub. This podcast offers insightful conversations on how to be an impactful leader of self and others through influence. We will draw from diverse experience and backgrounds to provide practical advice and engage in discussions on a wide range of topics. Sneakers, Cars, and Leadership promises to be an engaging and informative podcast that equips listeners with the tools and insights needed to lead effectively in all areas of life.
Awesome. Welcome back to Sneakers, Cars, and Leadership. I'm your host, Dre Hub. And so they tell you to balance your life like it's a scale. But we all know that when one side goes up, the other side has to go down. So that's not winning. And that's just a trade-off. So today, we aren't just talking about balance, we're talking about integration. And so before we dive in, let's talk about my kicks of the day. And so right here, I got these pair of custom Nike ID Air Max 97s, all black. I threw on the gum bottom on these. Man, these shoes were designed by Christian Tresser in 1997. It was inspired to look like ripples in water, expanding from a central point, kind of showing that constant movement. But that gum sole, that's for traction. And if you're going to navigate the ripples of a high-level career and a family, you better have some grip because you're going to have to buckle up. It's going to be fast-paced. You got a lot going on. And speaking of space to breathe, when I think about my ride, take it back to an old vehicle I had, so 2018 Lincoln Navigator Reserve. It was black on black, sitting on 22s. That's probably the first vehicle I ever brought some wheels from. And 2018 was the year of the refounding of Lincoln brand. And that truck was a definition of quiet luxury. It was built to shut out the world so you can focus on what's happening inside the cabin. And so some of us are leading with the windows down, letting all the noise of the world dictate our pace, dictate what we're doing. And so today, we're going to learn how to roll those windows up. So joining me today is a brother who navigates those ripples of one of the largest school systems in the country. He's the executive director of external affairs for Atlanta Public Schools, APS. He deals with high stakes, high visibility, and high pressure. Yet he still prioritizes the things that matters most. Man, Carl Hill, welcome. I know we kind of go way back. It's one of those things where we crossed paths growing up in high school, didn't know each other, but we got a chance to meet each other in life. So welcome, man. So I appreciate you coming here. So tell people about yourself.
No, I appreciate it, Dre. So, number one, thank you for the invitation. I know we've talked about this a couple of times, and it's really cool for the side endeavors to really flourish. I think at this point in stage, we talked about this when we've developed so many professional skills, but really thinking about, how you can continue to grow, not only personally, but professionally as well. And I think you've done a great job kind of marrying the two. Again, I would say I'm born and raised in Atlanta, third generation ATLian, Southwest to be exact. 166 is where you can find me. If you want to know my zone, well, we're going to stop there because we go way too far back. But I do say that for me, it is all about balance at this point in time. I'm a husband. I've been married 15 years. So been in the game for a while because you feel like I got actual grades coming out, earned those grades. 3 kids. I got a 12 and 3/4. I feel like he's knocking 13 down right now, a 7th grader and a 10th grader, 4th grader, and a 4-year-old. So, when we talk about work-life balance, that has actually been my mantra probably in the last 18 months. It's been kind of like, how do you balance this thing we call life, given the fact that, whether we call it middle age or just where we at in the stage of life we are, we're having to understand the dynamics of the 9 to 5 needs to not take over the Fridays to Sundays. And in my world, when Sunday morning was being taken over, again, and we're going to events other than church, you start to think about, how is this important, but do understanding the importance of adding the benefit to what you do professionally. So again, like you said, currently I'm with Atlanta Public Schools. Spent over 20 years really in corporate America. 10 years with T-Mobile. Did some light jobs before that, internships, retail, but really cut my teeth with T-Mobile, sales, going through the motions of being a rep, leading the team, then going to a regional, manager role, then really being recruited over through the National Black MBA to go to CCR, which was the distribution side of Coca-Cola back in 2014. So I had a great time running that for about almost 3 years until we were completely transitioned over to Coca-Cola United Bottling Company when the Coke system all went over to the bottler, and that's when I transitioned into more multicultural marketing, which was really fun, but then that's when I really, developed my passion when I started, really working with the community, and in my mind, it was the same thing that I was doing in sales, coming up with solutions, because that's really all it is. How do you come up with solutions? So I led marketing, went over to community affairs, and then the world of DEI opened up Pandora's box. We let it all out. And maybe for another podcast, we can talk about the rise and crest of DEI. But through that was all partnerships too, because I approached that no differently. And then as that started to weed down, found that there was a better way for me to continue to add impact. And that's what led me to APS to really think about an institution that has really birthed, my entire family since my grandmother graduated from Washington High School, the first black high school in Georgia back in 1941. I tell people my great grandmother moved here when she was a teenager, but couldn't even go to high school because there wasn't high school to go to.
Oh,
Washington High
wow.
School opened up in 1924. So during her period, there was nothing you did once you got out of primary school for blacks. There was no secondary school. Washington High School was that first school. And then my father graduating out of Harper High School, and then my brother graduated out of Frederick Douglass High School, and then they getting it right with me coming out of Benjamin E. Mays High School. So for me, it's kind of, all passion, all family, and really just making sure that we can build on the thing we call Atlanta.
Wow. And so before we actually jump into just work life integration, let's talk about how you integrated coming from that corporate world of 20 years into the space you are now. Like what has that been like?
I think everything's about routines. I've tried to keep the same routine in the same sense of, going to the office, but also being intentional to get out of the office. I know what works well for me, but then also being mindful of what the culture is. I think as I've gone to different offices and different organizations over the past 20 years, I've kind of had the opportunity to adapt to some. I think in the public sector, it's very interesting given the need of regulatory issues and the policies that come up that you have to know. But for me, just kind of having the mindset to listen and to be in the meetings to absorb some of the conversation that go on. That's one of the good things I will say that, corporate might have went completely more virtual, like the talking heads, and they meet a lot more in person, which I like, quite frankly. Because that's what I was quite frankly used to. Every Monday, you got staff meeting, then you have your team meeting, and then you might have another meeting that week. But I think for all the right reasons during COVID, and with technology, a lot of corporate went to the floating heads, and you kind of pinged everybody on teams. Where I believe the public sector is still kind of where it was, where you can go down and maybe knock on someone's door, or you can see them in the meeting coming up in a couple hours. So it's more about kind of getting used to kind of how you used to do it when the technology wasn't so big. Now we still use Teams, still very preparing for partnerships and meetings for folks, conference calls, but definitely a lot more in-person meetings than I've seen in my past couple endeavors. It depends on where you're at. I'll say when I was in more stable role with United, it was more about balance because I understood the landscape, right? The roller coaster, I get it. Like the screen machine. We're gonna go up, we're gonna go down, might go sideways, but you get used to twists and turns. I think when in this new role, I'm more about trying to integrate because I want to be mindful that I'm there to add value, but also be mindful of again a lot of these colleagues of mine have been working in education for decades, and this is what they do. So I want to also make sure that I don't step on a best practice that they might have just because of a way that I normally do it. So it's kind of almost a balance between integration and imbalance. Truthfully, I would always take the integration first and see how it works for me. And if it doesn't work on the second go round, we balance it out with, well, let's do it how Carl knows it to be work. 'Cause honestly, that delivers on the solution, quite frankly.
Got you, got you. And I apologize. I gotta be remiss. I did not ask you the two questions. Like,
I was wondering about
your
my kid.
shoes.
I was
Before we
wondering about
jump
my
back in, yeah, what? Yeah, I just jumped right in because I wanted to hear all the great stuff about man your career and what you're doing. I forgot to ask you two questions. Let's jump
yeah.
right there.
I
So,
thought if I
do you
should have
got a
brought
pair of
mine up.
shoes?
Honestly, my favorite ones right now, and it's kind of funny you said this. It is so I'm an Air Max guy. So I love my Air Max. I ran track. So I did the AAU track. I ran Quicksilver until I watched higher learning. And I realized I could take a scholarship if you lose a race. And I said, nope, I'm not gonna be running in college. So I gave it up in senior year. But I loved running track. Kept the shape, the whole nine. Played football a little bit, but got hurt a lot. But track was my thing, my jam. For shoes, really, like I loved. There was some '95 Air Maxes because they were USA because the Olympics were coming up for '96. So I used to love the one. I used to love those ones. It was all blue and they had like USA on the back and then the red in the middle. Man, I love that one. So my new shoes, I actually brought them up here. It's co-branded. They're Air Max, but they're Falcon shoes. Now, obviously, I'm a riding down with the Falcons. We're dying right now. We're up, even though we win what it doesn't matter. I really enjoy the co-branded Air Max. That's so like those two shoes, like Air Maxes, are really good for customization. So Impala, 95 Impala is probably my favorite car. I remember it's probably the first one, well, the last one, what was the full body style. Wasn't really plastic. I mean, real metal, as you call it, right? And if you look at
Yeah,
95 Impalas, it's long. But it's not like the old school. They just don't make. They literally don't make it like that anymore. So
yeah,
that was always my like, man. I felt like that was the car that you just a cool kid to drive. Wasn't quite the car that you knew the bad kids were driving. Like you might, it was the car to think about driving. You could soup it up. So 95 Impala was probably like my dream car from an old standpoint. And then recently, obviously with three kids, the MDX, I have one, but I was in a car accident, so I lost it. I was totaled. Drunk driving. It took me out. But when I go back to that, told myself I liked it so much I couldn't get it again because I enjoy driving it so much. But the MDX was probably a really good, great car to drive for families. So those are like my two hot ones right now. Now, other than that, I'm driving Toyota Highlander just because I need to throw everything in the back. And funny story, somebody asked me coming out of it was a work lunch, and the dude was like, "Man, how you like that Toyota Highlander?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's an executive director for like a nonprofit in Atlanta." I looked at him, I said, "Well, do you have kids?" He said, "No." I said, "Why do you want one?" I was like, it's absolutely I love the Toyota, but there's absolutely no reason to have a Toyota Highlander unless you got kids. I mean, there's bigger Jeeps, trucks, but that thing is really good. The best three-row I've seen out there in the market. But other than that, I'm going back to that MDX probably once I get rid of all my car seats. I still got one. And then once they out my house, at least one married, maybe two. Imma get that Impala.
you know what? That is one that I love too as well. And I think 95 or 90 is one of those years is when the last year they had like the LT1, I guess, engine in their car. And oh man, that car sounded so good. And actually, last night, me and the wife, we were watching Captain Marvel. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
Yes.
that's the car that Samuel L. Jackson, he's driving one.
Yes. No, 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 no. Very fond of Marvel. We're a Marvel family. And I think it was in there. And if Shaft is driving it, come on. It has to be cool. I mean, forever
Yeah.
Shaft. I mean, that's really all Nick Fury is in the MCU. It's Shaft. They made
There
him
you go.
Shaft. But but yeah, man, I said, man, I wish I had it. And I did have an Impala, I will say. So my second car was an Impala, but it wasn't a 95. It wasn't a 95 Impala. They
Uh,
stripped it down.
yeah, I had the so it's funny, I can't remember what year I had. It was the later body, the earlier, I guess they came like in 2000s body style Impala.
Oh yeah. I had
And
a Pontiac, '01 Pontiac, so it had to be maybe like '06, '07
yes.
Impala.
Yep. So I had one of those, and actually got stolen. So that was when it got stolen when I was working downtown. I got stolen out of the parking lot, and then we used to have an MDX. So we had an MDX before, and my wife loved that car. She always wanted an MDX, so we got the MDX. But then what happened with us was that the third row is we needed more room in the back with the
Yeah,
three kids and everything. Because even if you fold the seat up, you still don't have enough room back there for road trips.
correct.
But I do miss that car. So yeah, I do miss that MDX.
I
So
hope it is about Impalas because I think I had a couple wheels gone as well in Memphis a couple of times, man. And let's just say Impala is a very popular car in this house.
yes, there you go. There you go. So now let's jump back in. Now, have you ever had where you had poor work life integration shown up in your life or in your career? And what were some of the warning signs that you noticed so that it doesn't happen in the future or happen again?
Yeah, I think for me, I definitely had poor work-life balance. Now, I think the thing I can tell most aspiring professionals, I call them the young bulls, young lions. I mean, you know 'em, man, they look at you, quite frankly, as the GOAT, and they're like, "Man, you already there. Like, you already doing all the things and meeting with the VPs and CEOs. There's nothing I could tell you." I think the one thing that they don't realize is that they probably are burning themselves out and doing all the things when they really don't have to. And I think for me, it took place where it was truly probably a 7-day week I was working. That was all great stuff. I mean, it was, dinners to go to on Saturdays, possibly a game to go to on Saturday with clients, possibly a golf tournament. It's a good, it's like people, is it really work, right? But when you're doing it 7 days a week, I mean, you get to the point where it's like you blend in the time, you're blending the lines between what you want to do or what you're doing for the job. And I think that's where, I would say for some folks, you got to make sure you still take that time. You get 2 days off, you should take it. And I only got that issue when I got into like that director role. Even when I was like a manager, I tell people a lot when I was at T-Mobile, my schedule a lot was like Tuesday through Saturday. I mean, it was a full day Saturday. Saturday was a sales day. I mean, I would be up and it was go. Now it worked out well because at that point I didn't have any. I think my son, no, I didn't have any kids. So it was, working till like 7 p.m. on Saturday night. What you gonna do anyway? I mean, you waiting to go out to 9, 10 anyway. So for me, it was very easy to work Tuesday to Saturday and actually enjoyed Monday off because I could knock out a lot of stuff, banks, doctor's visits, cars, just stuff that you had to kind of schedule. Monday would be that day. Once I got into maybe I was a senior manager, had a team of 20 folks, maybe, got to, 300 people, and the phone was like the bat phone. And it was like with and you laughing, and your wife looked at you like, "Why is that phone with you? Like, you off?" "Yeah, I'm off, but I just need to know. I need to be available. I need to be available." That's what they say. I need to be available,
Yep.
right? That's when it started to get in the zone of, all right, 7 days a week. And it's not a problem with that. And I tell people this all the time. I even tell a team, like, I don't mind working 12-hour days, 2 or 3. But best believe there's gonna be a 4-hour day or a 6-hour day.
Yep.
There needs to be a balance. And that's something I didn't learn to like, further on in some of the journeys I was doing. Then once I got out of some of those really intensive sales roles or people leader roles, it became one of those where, managing my time to do the desk stuff, the reply to the emails. I think now they're coining the phrase focus time, which is really cool, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that was a nice little, block the calendar, it's focus time. I was You need focus time. I said, "All right." I mean, Microsoft is, yeah, you do, and so I think stuff like that is a good advent for technology because if everyone's just throwing meetings on your calendar, you really never have a time to sit down and ideate. Because I still do the old school to-do list. And my wife hates it. She got me a tablet, but I grab my binder Sunday afternoons. I start writing one to whatever. I think it's one that we do to ourselves, quite frankly, overachievers,
Yeah.
but it's one that you need to be in the right place at the right time. It's a very
Yeah.
hard thing to answer in everyone's workday, but you need to be in the right place at the right time. And I think that could be knowing if you need to be at that dinner.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you're at that dinner tonight, do you need to be at dinner the next night? And from what I found out was most leaders will tell you if you went to that dinner that night, you may not need to go the next night unless there's something in the room you need to be at. And so that's where it's kind of one of those things where I think for me, questions start coming up. And I do encourage people, and I want to make sure that's clear. And when things are rolling, right? When you getting the invites and you get people inviting you stuff, you should go. You should. When things are rolling, you should jump in the room. But you should also know what room you're going into, what are your goals, professionally, personally, and know if they've been kind of quasi checked and it's a duplicate room. Do you really need me there?
Yeah.
Half the time they're gonna look at you and be like, nah. I mean, because you was there the next night or the night before. Because again, if you're the person asking, should you go after you've been invited, chances are you've gone to a lot of things. It's the people who are like, and you probably met people like this as well. They'll say, "Hey man, we really need you to go tonight. Are you gonna be there? Is the wife coming with you?" If you're that person, then you probably don't have a problem with burnout. You are managing your calendar very well. You are going home. You are shutting this computer down, and people are finding you.
Yeah. And you touched on something. So in that, how have you managed integrating the wife or the kids into those work events that you might have? Because I've found that sometimes, like, it might be a work conference that's happening,
Mhm.
and I brought the family along, and they're doing their thing. I'm doing the conference, and then I'll come back and check on them, and I'm back and forth. Now that has its plus and minuses.
Yep.
And then you have the different events that you go to, and you get the plus one, so you bring the wife. And so we try different things where maybe we go out to dinner by ourselves before the event. And then you're at the event and you might have some light bites
Yep.
because you ate before, or you go to the event, but you leave at a certain time. Say, hey, we're going to go to this event. And it goes back to what you say to say, hey, who am I going to the event for? Who's in the room? Because can I leave early? And then, hey, then me and the wife can go have a date night. So how have you managed that piece when trying to integrate the family into that professional world? Or have you done that?
Well, I can tell you, I'm not with the kids. I'm horrible with that. I see a lot of people do it well. I don't. I'm kind of the more aware parent. I'm the hoverer. I'm like, what's going on? I'm looking at them. They throw me off probably more than they throw my wife off. So for me, I have not integrated my kids as much. And when I do bring them to something, it is when I don't have any responsibility. Like
Got you.
I am not on the docket. I am not the host. I am not the MC. I am not part of the run of show. I am just there, and I might bring my kids with me, and I'm in the back, right? Now, Sheree and I, she's very much used to these types of meetings and events. Mm, She did not like the sales events when I was running, because you host it, you just entertain the clients type of thing, right? She would, she's I said she, when I walked out of sales 2018, she liked the non-sales events because again, as a client and a host, you got to make sure that the client's doing a good job, and if you're doing it correctly, you should be sliding in some business every now and then to tee up the next meeting. My wife would never really understand, like, why are you talking to them so long? Like, let them live. They here for a reason. They gotta hear me. When they see me on Tuesday at 12 o'clock, they gotta remember Friday night. Like, I gotta, it's gotta be easy. So she was never in sales, so she never understood that. Once I moved out of sales, and it became like more of a community thing, it's truly, relationship building partnerships. It was easier for her to have that conversation because it wasn't as transactional as needed to be. And even though clients, partners, they're all the same when it is a contractual side of the relationship, both sides know you need to, probably pull each other aside a little bit, have a conversation. So wife's been great. Kids, I have not. And I think going forward, I try to let them know what I'm going to be doing before I get there. Because as my wife would say, I would run around and leave her. Now I've got an age where like, look, if you see me talking to such and such, it is intentional because I need him or her to know me. And more so, I have a meeting coming up, not to get in like all the details, but she just needs to know this is work, but work life balance. Cause like she tells me that's not a date night then.
Yeah.
And that's fair because that might mean that dinner that we went to, that great restaurant, wasn't a date night. So now I gotta follow up with an actual date night where I can, just be with her. So, she understands that.
Yeah, I pulled that one. It's like, "Hey, we just went to this five-star restaurant. We had a great meal." And she's like, That doesn't count.
No, that doesn't count.
That doesn't count."
No, 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 no.
Now now, when you think about kids, family, how did you start customizing your day to fit your family needs instead of your system needs or your professional needs?
Man, I was probably out of necessity. As the kids getting older, as they get all these activities, and that led to a sense of burnout because, you're doing all the, you would, I'm up at like shoot, back in the day, I'm on call at 7 a.m. And that was after I got off doing a report at 5:30 in the morning, right? Prep for it. Then you finish the 5:30 in the morning report. You got out when they wake up to get them dressed. You out the door with them on the phone, telling them to be quiet while you're on a conference call. And then when you get them dropped off, you shooting back to the office to get to work. So by the time you've done a 7 a.m. to 4, you got like a 4 to 6 window where you're trying to really be intentional, dinner, but then we're just running back to the computer because you didn't miss all these emails that you missed. So I think what I had to realize was you have to, I had to approach it differently. I had to approach it differently with really how I was positioning my time during the day. So really looking to kind of truly close the books. Like, what do I need to complete? And really, I think about that at 1 o'clock. Like 1 o'clock. What do I need to be done with this day now? Right. So if there's a couple calls coming up that will go to 5 o'clock, is a firm. If it's a firm thing in my mind that is not gonna be resolved this day. Maybe fortunately that night, which is not a good thing. But in that 6 to 9 window, I try to really not do work. I'm not the best at that, but that's my aspiration.
Yeah. I like that. And so that goes back to when we think about setting priorities, like how do you decide what truly deserves your time and energy, both at
Yep.
work and in life? And are there any questions or frameworks that you use? And it's a good
Yeah.
and I ask this question because I think sometimes we're so focused on time and energy as it relates to our professional. But then sometimes there might be stuff in our personal life that might not deserve our time and energy. We have to have a honest conversation and say, hey, do I really need to go to that birthday party? Because I
Yeah.
think, for example, for me, like my wife was like, "Hey, we're about to go to this Christmas celebration, like I think it was like a Christmas store thing that was in Buckhead or whatever." And my question was, "Okay, who's going?"
Mhm.
And I hear the names. Okay, cool. Any of the husbands going? Any of the boyfriends going? No. Then I'm like, I don't think I really need to go because I'm gonna be the only guy there. So, just along those lines, how do you truly decide what deserves your time and energy in personal and professional, and what kind of questions and frameworks do you use?
Yeah, I think about it as like a Venn diagram. If you think about those two circles
Yeah.
that overlap and what's in the middle, that's where
Yeah.
I kind of really decide, that's where I should put some energy in from my own personal, professional relationships. If I find that there's a person that is in two or three buckets, I might need to tap in, quite frankly. I've seen him or her out professionally. I've seen him or her at the grocery store. I've seen him or her at church. I've seen him or her in his organization I'm in. I've seen him or her talk to a friend I know. So that's why I say, what, this person might be something I need to tap into. And as far as the initiative, again, same thing with the Venn diagram. The more, and to me, the easier I can get the things to be more synergistic in my life, the better it is at this stage, right? Because again, you know, my father did 30 years at APS. He was a, football coach in the 80s. Actually met my mother in high school. She was a counselor while she was at Carver High
Mm.
School. He was a head football coach, social studies teacher at Carver High School. She was like a HR counselor, right? So they met there. So I would tell people I'm APS times two because not only graduated, but they made me, quite frankly, right? Parents wouldn't exist. So for me, I think about how they dealt with me and these breaks, and I realized he was off a lot, quite frankly, when I was off. So it was like that's why they never found childcare because he would be
Mhm.
off, or his aunt, my aunt would, or his sister, my aunt that was 30 years, or his brother who was coaching at Grady. So it just seemed like it was a little bit easier for them because they was always just had availability with family. So
Mm.
now, to have that availability given this holiday season, to now to start to prioritize, taking my son to, basketball practices, getting geared up for AAU, looking at travel sports. Nowhere near able to coach or do things that you do, quite frankly. I see what you do, man. I want to give you your flowers because anybody who's in it like you and most dads who are coaching, man, if I can get I'm telling you what I tell these coaches, if I can get my son to your practice and games, I've done my job. And he plays well because I will make sure he's ready. I can't take responsibility to nothing else. Nothing else. So people like you come, I get him to your practice. I will make sure he's at your games, and I'm gonna make sure he gets some side reps along the way. But that takes time, and I think for me, it's important time because I am mindful that this time with him is going to go by. Like I said, he's in seventh grade right now. I mean, that's 5 years. I mean, he's gone. So
Yeah.
I gotta figure out. And then I have two girls, 10-year-olds. I'm gonna be in Barbie land. So and I love it. Shout out to K-pop, Demon Troll Hunters, but like I was like, it's a cool girl movie now. I can watch these things. But I'm realizing that will be my life in like 5 years, easily. All girl stuff. So for me, it's like, let's go ahead, let's do the boy stuff. He's on the PS5 right now. Probably mad. I told him to get off of the Wi-Fi. But he's playing the sports, but this season we'll have an end to it, right? So for me, I don't want to be the person who looks back at a season and realize that I missed it because I was chasing something I thought was more valuable.
Got you. And on that note, I actually hung my whistle up last year. Well, no,
What?
actually, I hung it up 2 years ago because when the kids moved over, so both my boys moved over to higher level competitive soccer. I couldn't coach because
Got it.
those guys are on staff. And they are, I mean, they're so listen, like you said, I can get you to practice. I'll make sure he's ready. But I will sit in my car with my laptop and probably get caught up on emails and jump on calls.
Yeah.
I'll go catch his practice every day, but I'll make sure he gets to practice. I'll make sure he gets to games. But yeah, when they moved over to that, like for those dads who and the moms, the parents
Correct.
who coach
Yeah, yeah.
travel competitive sports
Yeah. 100%.
and work a full-time job and have a family, I don't know how they do it.
No,
Cause I'm
I
like,
don't either.
something has to give. Cause that's
Correct.
a lot.
Correct.
Cause I'm like, we got 4 practices. We got 4 practices a week and 2 games. We only got 1 day off average. And it's really Friday, but technically Friday's not off because Friday is training or
Conditioning.
they have a mental coach. And so they have so yeah, so all the team gets online and it's like a therapist for an hour and she's talking to them just about how to manage stuff. So really,
Wow.
it's 7 days a week.
And how old is this now?
So my oldest is 14, youngest is 12.
See, that's what I'm talking about. A mental coach. See, I'm not ready. I knew it. See, regardless of you not even being coaching, you are in that world right now. I'm like scratching that. Like I go to these AAU practices and I'm looking around like, man, obviously, I'm like 5'9.5", 5'10" on a good day. And then like all these dads, they all like X-ball, 6'7", 6. I'm just looking around like, I don't know how I got here. Cause like, I'm not X-baller. Like I said, like this thing ended, but like they're like in it to win it. And some of them are doing quite well. Like to your point, they're out, this guy is he's probably a home equity guy. Like he does financing, right? And he's out with the headphones on like you, cranking it out in the gym. Hey, what's up? Kids is doing a couple of practices with a European coach. It's a whole world that, like, believe me, I'm just trying to keep pace with.
Yeah.
But but the priorities, I do think there is a sacrifice there because the people I work with, especially now APS, that is their world. Like they're looking at me like I'm not doing Jack and Jill. I'm not doing this cotillion. Like the ball is our life. Like that's what we do. Like my son plays baseball. My son does soccer, and the soccer moms and my wife knows them, or the woman says my husband. That is our life. So I do think that's the trade off. Like you
Yeah.
just commit yourself to the sport.
Yeah.
You may not be playing it, but you are a community with those.
Yeah. I agree. Now, in that you talked about putting in time with the kids, with work, with the wife. Like, but what does self-care look like for you in real life? What routines do you do to recharge?
Yeah, that's one thing that, I honestly, again, full disclosure, getting better at. I have a goal to make sure that, this family is well taken care of. The wife knows she's loved, taken care of. So for me, myself is not the first thing I think about. My wife might think differently, but that is not the first thing that I think about, right? So I'm doing a little bit better. And I think I was talking to somebody that one thing I'm gonna try to do is what I said earlier with my career transition is the routines. I think blocking out calendars for whatever, call time, right? Maybe not focus time, but just, maybe it's my swing. My swing is horrible. Ever since I got out of sales, I can't golf anymore. So trying to get back to golf a little bit, right? Thinking about working out, trying to hit the gym, trying to run, right? So I think one thing I'm gonna try to do, not even 2020s, it's 26, like now, is just having these times. I would say even right now, this podcast would be one that would call, you know, call time, self-care,
Yeah.
right? And putting that on the calendar. Flexible. Thank you for moving it, but making sure
Yeah.
that it happens is one of the things that I continually try to do in how I walk now. Is like, how do I ensure that? And I think someone said this to me. If your doctor told you that your kid, needed playtime, like that would be a prescription. You, as a parent, would guarantee that happens. You would find the fresh air, you would grab that ball and you would throw it, and you would even probably find another kid. 'Cause that's what we do, to make sure that your son has another someone to play with. As adults, probably we need the same thing. We just don't think of it that way, right? So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is make sure that as I'm, clocking through all the things that I'm doing, joint calendars, work calendars, putting a little call time on there as well.
And so along those lines, like, why do you think leaders, especially men, push self-care to the side? And what's the real cost when that happens?
I think successful leaders, because I won't go the route. I'm gonna go a different route than the IBM guy that you feel pulling his hair out with the white shirt, black tie. Why did I do this in the corner office? I think we enjoy it. Like we generally do. Like we love what we do. We
Yeah.
generally enjoy what we're doing, getting in front of the team. Like one of the things I truly miss with sales, quite frankly, is the Tuesday huddles. When I used to get in front of the team of like 30 people and try to get them motivated to sell whatever. Like you give them the Braveheart speech. Like literally, if you remember Braveheart with half his face was like blue. I mean, that was it. Like that's what I was giving. Like every Tuesday, let's go. Let's slay Goliath. Like whatever the hell it is. That's what we're doing. I genuinely enjoyed that, right? And I
Yeah.
think most leaders, good leaders, enjoy what they do so much that it's almost like candy. It's overindulgence. Like we just continually feed it. And quite frankly, you get paid for it. And you continually rise. And you continually get what you love. But as we all know what the dentist says, too much sweets eventually gives you a cavity, right? Too
Yeah.
much, of anything, right? Too much running, it eventually wears you out. So I think from the opposite side of, career burnout is just we enjoy it so much that we don't understand when we probably have too much of it.
Wow. And it's funny you say that because my wife, we would go, she'd be like, "Oh, you're a workaholic." My, family members say, "Here, you're a workaholic," but I didn't see myself as a workaholic because to your point, like I enjoy it. Like
Yeah,
that is something like it's a passion. It's something that I love to do. Being
correct,
in the trenches with the team,
correct.
seeing things, seeing successes come out, and if there's a failure, bouncing back really fast. Like it's not something that drains me per
Yeah,
se, like, it fills me back up.
yeah,
But to your point, candy is great. Like,
yeah.
I love Skittles, but, too many Skittles and you got cavities and teeth falling out.
Hey, I bring it back to Atlanta. I love Krispy Kreme, but you can't eat a dozen every day.
Yeah,
You would love to, right? So I truly believe, like even for me, you said it. Take it back to that earlier point. When did I realize that I was probably going too hard? That's 7 days a week, and it was stuff that I love doing. I mean, you go to you work Monday through Friday. Hey, we need someone to do this, man. Going. We need someone to go this, man. Going. You need me to speak at this, man. I'm going. I loved it all, but in hindsight that's what happens. That's the burnout. Like, you just can't do it every day. So it's not that, you do it because you're like, the man is watching you and, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get fired tomorrow." I think that's the opposite. That's probably the opposite thing that people who are successful don't really good leaders really don't understand. Like, "Oh, it's not me." Like, I don't
yeah,
hate my job. I don't hate my team. Like,
yeah,
I don't hate my boss. Like, the organization's going through it, but I like it here. That's fine. You still probably doing too much.
yeah,
And I think that's probably
yeah,
one of the things that really good leaders probably struggle with until they get to the point of self-reflection of why they're feeling some of these things. It's because they
yeah,
just put too much on the plate.
yeah. And so for someone who might be listening to this that's feeling overwhelmed right now, what's one step that they can take this week to get back on a better path?
You know what? I would say kind of opposite from like, the self-help books or the meditate. I would tell them to think about a time when they weren't overwhelmed and they was enjoying X. What was X? And why not go do it?
Mm,
Could be anything. And it's changed for me. I had a park that I grew up with, I used to play baseball with, and early on, I mean, I used to, and it's a beautiful lake, Southwest Atlanta, Adams Park, play baseball over there, CYO, Cascade Youth Organization. That you love that park, spent many times at that park, and I just love the man-made lake. realized I couldn't fish because when I got to a real lake, I was like, "What? I thought I was good at this," and I'm like, every time I used to fish back in the day, I caught something. Somebody like threw the fish in there. Okay, got you. So now, so one of the things I used to do was I used to go to this park, and I just sit. It was a good place to go to clear my thoughts. I got older, so I stopped going to that park. But and then it was going to Barnes and Nobles, pulling up a book or a library, reading something. Time got away from me there, so maybe I don't have time to go to the book, so I may not do that. A couple of years ago, I was heavy into the podcast. I might just listen to a couple podcasts. I might doze off. So again, whatever it is or it was that you last felt relieved, do that. And I think it's important to know that as leaders, it can change. Like it doesn't need to be the thing that worked for you 5 years ago. Can't it doesn't need to be the thing that worked for you when you're like 10 years old. Or it doesn't need to be the thing that worked for you when you first came a director or first came a VP. Just needs to be the last thing that you remember you actually enjoyed and it was stress. If it's golf, go golf. If it's running, or any kind of physical activity, don't overdo it because you probably may not be at that shape, but do it. Right. I used to run like 20 some odd miles on a Sunday back when, I was doing half marathons. Now I crank out a good 2 or 3, I was out there. I did my thing. So again, it's just what it is that you want to do and then go do that.
So I guess on that note, what is that one thing you're gonna do? Or are you already doing it?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it's things like this. I'm trying to intentionally do like, fun interactions, right? Where I can share some knowledge, gain some knowledge
Mhm.
that could be doing a podcast. You're probably it's so odd. You're like one of 3 friends that have started these podcasts. Like, man, I need to get you on my podcast. And then you are the first one that I've actually done because it's just like coffee. Man, you gotta get on my podcast. And so now it's like walking them down and say, let's actually do that. And then like last I think 2 weeks ago, I did a leadership program, RLI Regional Leadership Institute, and a guy, really good guy, was like, "Man, we've been talking about doing this coffee before break. Where are you at on Friday?" And it was like Wednesday.
Mm.
We just made it happen, and I mean squeezed it because I had somewhere to go, but it was a hot like I got 30 minutes and I got to be wheels up in 15 because I got to drive this meeting. But we wanted to make sure it got done before the holiday break because we also didn't want to be that person who's always like, we should do coffee. What we
Yeah,
do on lunch? And it's like,
yeah,
if you really want to do that, do that. So we both kind of made a commitment to be like, you know what? Going in 2026, we will get done those things that we want to do to make sure we, build meaningful interactions.
yeah. And I love that because you actually are one that pushed me because you asked me like 3 times, like, "Hey, Dre, when we gonna do this podcast? When we gonna do this podcast?" And it really is like, you know what? I'm locking it in. So been in the lab, recording a whole bunch of them. So I will say you one of those the one that's inspired me to push me and say, "Hey, just go ahead and do it."
Well,
So
I
I
think I
appreciate
think
that.
it's no, I think it's fantastic. And I think, again, quite frankly, from a leadership perspective, like when you have other projects to worry about, your main project or the paid project, because I'm telling people right now, because I officially go back to the office next Monday. So
Mhm.
someone's like, what you been up to this week? A lot of unpaid work. I'm doing a lot of stuff that, that doesn't give me direct income, but it's stuff that I want to do because in my experience, these side projects allow you to handle the main projects a lot better.
Got you. So with that, we're gonna wrap it up, and I'm gonna leave it to you. What any last words, any last nuggets you want to leave to the listeners?
No, I think one of the things that I've tried to impart and to take from your leadership question is the Venn diagram. What is everyone's synergy? What are you doing in the day or the night on the weekends that all tie together? Because if you have 3 different buckets that don't touch each other, it's a very stressful life. And I've been there where I was selling lemons, living across the country. LA was great, loved the city, but I didn't have family there. I didn't really know anybody there but people I met, and I was working out there. I knew I had to get back to the South. So again, I use that analogy because if you're a leader and you're in a place where you realize that everything has a compartment and they're never touching, well, that's not a solid foundation because you're living in three different houses.
Mm.
You probably want to live in one house. That's one foundation with maybe different levels, right? I mean, 5 level, 6-story house, it doesn't matter what it is. But I challenge everybody to figure out what that one foundation looks like. Because life gets a lot easier when you have that one foundation.
Wow. Man, Carl, I appreciate you and everybody. That one foundation. Leaving everybody with that nugget, that one foundation. So I appreciate you, everybody. Episode Sneakers, Cars, and Leadership. Take care of yourself. Take care of your soul. And make sure you protect your peace. So this is Dre Hub. I got Carl here with me. And I appreciate you all. And that's the end of this episode today.
Peace.
All right.
Real different. Legacy move.